with Proposition R, we ask him.
If you're a lobbyist in the city of Los Angeles, at one time you had to register. What Proposition R did, it was a lobbying reform written by lobbyists so that it set a threshold at what the lobbyists would have. They would have to work so many hours before they had to register so many hours on a specific issue. So if they worked just under the amount of hours on a specific issue, they weren't a registered lobbyist.
And if they weren't official lobbyists, then they wouldn't be subject to the limitation on giving goodies to the council members. Things like tickets to ball games, celebrity events, all the stuff that got Mayor Villaraigosa in trouble.
Now, it's kind of hard to present that type of a issue to the public. So there needed to be something that could get it on the ballot, because an independent group doing that would definitely have some difficulty. So they went to the LA City Council, to Eric Garcetti, and as they wrote the ballot initiative, what they did was they increased the amount of time a city council member could serve from 2 4-year terms to 3 4-year terms, and they called it term limits. They wanted to limit the amount of time a council member could serve on the council by giving them 4 more years than they already had. And that's how they promoted it.
In that way, they could get the enthusiastic support of the council members and simultaneously confuse the voters who wouldn't know that there was a current 2-term limitation. Mr. Hernandez explained the mechanics of getting an initiative on the ballot.
With an issue like that, someone introduces it to the city council. It is assigned a file number. It's assigned a title. The city council then reviews it. They'll vote on it. If it's passed, like this one, they voted on it. They send it to the city attorney to have them review it. And in this particular case, Rocky Delgadillo was the city attorney at that time. And Rocky's office issued a legal opinion that by combining the so-called ethics reform with the extension of the city council terms, that you were violating the state constitution, which prohibits bundling of 2 different issues on a ballot initiative, because the public can't be forced to vote for something if they want something else. Even though the city attorney issued that legal opinion, Eric Garcetti pushed to have it on the ballot.
Well, if they're going to violate the state constitution, that means the city council had to do a better sales job to sneak it past the voters. They needed to get a few credible friends to come on board.
They added 2 co-sponsors to the ballot initiative. One was the League of Women Voters, and the other was the LA Area Chamber of Commerce. So how could it be a bad deal if you had 2 respected organizations as the authors of the ballot initiative?
So they camouflaged it behind 2 suspect groups who were willing to front the phony ballot initiative. But then they had this little problem of the city ethics committee. How could they slip this deception past them?
When you're going to place something like that on the ballot, usually it goes to the ethics commission so that they can review it. Well, now remember, Eric Garcetti was in his 2nd term. By extending it to 3 terms, he was going to get another term in office. So who was the head of the ethics commission at the time? Gil Garcetti.
Eric's father? What could the senior Garcetti do for his son? Help the initiative skate through without a glance.
They went to the ethics commission and said, we don't have time to let you review this, but we're just passing through to say, this is what we have, and it's going on the ballot. So the ethics commission never had an opportunity to review it. This is so fraught with a conflicts of interest no matter where you go.
Conflict of interest? Who cares? Rules be damned, it was full throttle ahead.
And so the city council put it on the ballot. The city attorney, like I said, had issued their legal opinion stating that it violated the state constitution. However, came up with a ballot title and summary. And that was placed on the ballot. There was an initial lawsuit was filed against it because specifically for the violating the bundling clause. Judge O'Brien in the LA County Superior Court issued a ruling that it did violate the state constitution.
The judge has ruled it unconstitutional, so it's a dead duck, right? Not when you're dealing with the careers of crafty politicians.
Now, what the city of Los Angeles did, though, was they filed an appeal to that ruling. Now, pending that appeal, I mean, the election was going to be taking place before that appeal could be heard. So the judge allowed the ballot initiative to be placed on the ballot, and the special interests in Los Angeles contributed hundreds of thousands of dollars to get the public to vote for ethics reform, and they had very, I mean, they know what they're doing, and they had plenty of money to do it, because here you had 15 city council members, all who benefited by it, and you had an unlimited amount of businesses that want to do business with the city that had to contribute. It's very obvious that you have the lobbyists working with the elected officials to help them help themselves.
But Mr. Hernandez wasn't about to let this go. He picked up the prior lawsuit and started banging on the issue, loudly. What happened to him as a result? You'll see when we come back from this short break. We'll be right back.
In the government, there's a phrase used to restrict access to information. That phrase, need to know. At fulldisclosure.net, we want you to have all the information you need to be an informed citizen, unlimited access to all the information we've gathered on our TV show. And if you can't watch us on your local cable station, streaming video of complete shows when you want them. Fulldisclosure.net, when you need to know the news behind the news.
Welcome back to Full Disclosure. We're talking to civic activist David Hernandez about his stand against Los Angeles Proposition R. Who did he name in his lawsuit?
The first was the County of Los Angeles, because remember, the County of Los Angeles certified the election. And then also the City of Los Angeles, also the LA City Council. And so those were the three main entities.
We asked him, what responsibility does the county have in certifying an election?
I believe the first responsibility is that it's legal and fair. Well, maybe not even so much fair, but at least legal, and that it's not violating any statutes or any laws. I mean, I don't believe that their job is just to certify the count. It has to. There are a lot of things that are involved in an election.
Why did Mr. Hernandez take on this issue when the voters obviously thought it was a good idea? Is this grandstanding on his part? His concern was the way power brokers ran roughshod over the voters to get the initiative passed.
I mean, yes, 340,000 people voted for it, but 250,000 people also voted against it. Even from the LA Times, the Daily News, no matter where everyone could see what was going on, and they were very vocal about opposing it. I mean, this wasn't about me. This was about, here was an issue where at the very core, you could look, no matter where you look at the culture of corruption, where you look at the special interests, the self-serving politics, it was all there. And all of the players that we see on a regular basis in Los Angeles that are doing this type of behavior and the go along to get along type of a mindset was all there. And it's like something that, was I really affected by it? On a personal sense, no. But this is where I live. And so when I stepped forward with the lawsuit to challenge, once again, it was because it was the right thing to do. It violates the state constitution.
Mr. Hernandez explained the process he followed to pick up the prior lawsuit and take it to court.
Now, remember, I've always been a grassroots activist, advocate, so I didn't have that much, any money. I found an attorney that was willing to at least get the ball rolling, that she was going to do most of it for free, because she believed in it as well. Judge O'Brien had moved from the jurisdiction, And so we ended up with Judge Yaffe. And, it was kind of like, okay, O'Brien had already ruled, so Yaffe kind of figured was going to rule the same.
Things were looking good. In fact, initially, Judge Yaffe ruled in their favor.
Before you go in front of the judge, what they do is they issue a preliminary declaration as to what the ruling was be, and then you go into the court, and then you're able to have oral arguments in response to his ruling. Well, the entire, not only with Judge O'Brien and the prior petitioner, but with myself and the motions, the responses filed by the City of Los Angeles, they were all trying to justify the fact that they could bundle in an initiative and that it was the will of the people. When they saw that the second judge had ruled that they couldn't because it was an initiative, they changed their strategy and said, well, this wasn't a ballot initiative. Nowhere in the ballot title and summary issued by the city attorney does it say initiative. It says ballot measure. And that was their new strategy.
Their new strategy took Mr. Hernandez completely by surprise, because a chartered city can legally bundle issues on a ballot measure, but that's not how the issue was first formulated.
He said, as a chartered city can put a ballot measure on the ballot. And that's true. I have no qualm with that. However, where the problem comes in is that's not what the city council members voted on. They didn't vote on strictly a ballot measure or a proposition. They voted on a ballot initiative measure, and they specifically spelled out the word initiative in several of their documents, in not only the city council file documents, but letters from Eric Garcetti to the city clerk saying, please accept this ballot initiative from the League of Women Voters and the LA Area Chamber of Commerce, because he was the one pushing this.
So as a result, the preliminary ruling was thrown out the window.
Because they changed the word. They said, Judge, nowhere in there does this say initiative. And the state constitution only addresses the word initiative. It doesn't address the word ballot measure. Well, the state constitution doesn't address a lot of things. That doesn't mean they're legal. And it doesn't mean that the city could supersede the state law. When Judge Yaffe turned to my attorney and said, what do you have to say about that? That would have been the time to say, listen, Judge, here is the city council notes from their file. Clearly it says initiative. This is a ballot initiative. But not having that information at hand, the judge says, okay, I'll issue my ruling, and the judge ruled in favor of the county and the city.
Judge Yaffe ruled in favor of the city and the county. Apparently, this is a regular occurrence in the Los Angeles Superior Court, especially in Judge Yaffe's courtroom.
The judges, for the most part, are elected officials. They have donors to answer to. There's money involved in their campaigns and in their lifestyles. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why someone overseeing one of these cases, depending on who the petitioners and the respondents are, there can be other factors that would lead them to be more open to arguments that would not necessarily be valid.
In other words, there is only the perception of a level playing field. In fact, he had no idea the field is so far off level. We asked him if he was aware that the county had been paying Judge Yaffe $57,000 a year.
No, absolutely not. I mean, this is something that, I learned much later, but it was kind of like, It becomes a very murky situation to where you have the judges receiving compensation, not their paychecks, but bonuses in direct violation of the state constitution, sitting on a case that not only includes the city of Los Angeles, but the county, and having to do with an issue with regards to the state constitution, which they're already violating. So that's what really keeps this issue going, is that justice has not been served.
He is pressing forward with his case. We ask him how his effort will affect the next election for city council.
We are looking at 2013, and so the second round of city council members are looking at their third term in office. So now is the time to move forward with something like this.
But there is a new wrinkle in the case. The city attorney is retaliating. This gang of thieves is closing ranks, coming together to stop him dead in his tracks. We'll show you their alarming tactics when we come back from this short break. We'll be right back.
For the news behind the news, wherever and whenever you want it, go to fulldisclosure.net and get programs on topics affecting you, weekly updates and alerts on hot topics, video streaming of Full Disclosure episodes. It's award-winning, hard-hitting, corruption-fighting news coverage. And it's only available at fulldisclosure.net. Fulldisclosure.net, the news behind the news.
Welcome back to Full Disclosure. We asked David Hernandez how he felt when he realized the judges were receiving these huge sums of money from the county.
The first reaction is, one to almost a surrender and say, I give up, why bother? But you can't do that. The fact that they took the money and they sat in cases involving the County of Los Angeles, from whom they were receiving this money, of which they were not employees or had contracts, that's a conflict of interest. And so if justice can be served by having the original motion set aside, then I can move forward and address those issues with regards to whether or not the city or the county has a right to violate the state constitution merely by changing some of the verbiage.
It was apparent to Mr. Hernandez that Judge Yaffe was looking for any excuse to close the door on his lawsuit.
As soon as the city attorney's office gave him a way out, he took it. And that was to say, this is not a ballot initiative, this is a ballot measure. When clearly, especially with the notice of motion to vacate, he had all the evidence that it was an initiative, and yet denied it.
We questioned Mr. Hernandez to explain why he thinks there's a problem with the Judge Yaffe taking money from the county when the legislature has already approved SBX 211, granting all the judges immunity from criminal prosecution.
I'm doing this as an individual citizen, a resident of the county and city. I'm not an attorney. But there are judicial canons, there are guidelines, there are rules that prohibit an individual who is receiving compensation from a party to the case to sit and judge that case. That is a clear violation. Not to mention the fact that what they were receiving was a clear violation of the state constitution. So not only the legal canons that were being violated, also the state constitution was being violated.
So if the city wants to take a different tact, so can Mr. Hernandez. He is filing a motion to have Judge Yaffe's decision be set aside.
I'm coming forward with this to seek that these decisions of Judge Yaffe be null and void based on the fact that he was not qualified to sit in judgment on this particular case because it clearly involved the County of Los Angeles as well as the city. And where we go from there is that we will address the issue of ballot initiative versus ballot measure much more strongly in the very beginning, because clearly the points and authorities outlined in our motion to vacate substantiate our claim that this ballot, whatever they say was on the ballot, was an initiative and it clearly violated the state constitution.
There have been some new developments in this case since our original show was taped. David Hernandez explains.
Well, this is very interesting because we're about 15 days from our August 4th hearing in Department 86. And yesterday in the mail, I received these documents from the city attorney's office, who is representing the Los Angeles City Council. They have filed an opposition to my motion to vacate Judge Yaffe's ruling. And in addition to that, they're also seeking sanctions in a dollar amount against me for basically wasting their time in filing this motion. And it's interesting because their basis for the sanctions is that this is a frivolous lawsuit, or is a frivolous action, and that my sole purpose in filing this is because I want to harass the respondents, which in this case would be the city council members.
So the city attorney is not dealing with the issue but counterattacking to merely stop Mr. Hernandez from pursuing his issue.
They're not addressing really the facts of the case. First of all, they're attacking my credibility, my character, saying that that's why this is frivolous and why they should be entitled to sanctions. But when you look at the case in its entirety, I mean, what they're citing in their background is that I was challenging their efforts to bring reform and restrict lobbyists. Well, that's laughable, because this whole proposition was drafted by lobbyists, defended by lobbyists, and supported financially by lobbyists. So, but we're not even getting into that. What they are attempting to do is they want to have my motion to have Judge Yaffe's ruling set aside based on it being frivolous and that it was not done in a timely manner.
The city attorney has joined the forces with the city council to protect their newly and illegally won third terms. The political stakes have grown very large.
In 2013, if we were to be successful in having Proposition R ruled unconstitutional, then they wouldn't be eligible for their third term. So there is a lot riding on this particular motion that I filed. Aside from just whether or not if the decision will be set aside, it reaches all areas of local governance and the special interests in Los Angeles.
What's in it for the city attorney, we ask him. What's his motive?
The city attorney is protecting the council members, and from behind the scenes, all of the special interests that invested in those council members for their third term.
But he explained in part one that the city attorney actually took a position against Proposition R before it passed.
The first opinion, and that was Rocky Delgadillo was the city attorney at that time, his opinion was this was bundling and it was unconstitutional and was challengeable. But as soon as the city council put it on the ballot, then the position had to be changed. And then the city attorney's office then had to prove that that it didn't violate the Constitution.
Mr. Hernandez explained that no matter what the city attorney is saying, this crusade against Proposition R isn't personal. There are much more important concerns at stake.
As if from the beginning, this had nothing to do with the city council members as individuals. Many of them were friends of mine. I've worked on projects with them. This was not personal. This was about bringing integrity back to the political process in Los Angeles, accountability. This particular motion to void and set aside is no different. And so whether the city attorney is going to pursue the sanctions, dismissing this as frivolous or harassment, that's going to be on them. Because at the end of the day, I know, and the people that support me know, that what we have done is we will at least address and exhausted the remedies available to us as residents of the city of Los Angeles.
We want to thank David Hernandez for appearing on Full Disclosure today. We want to know what you, the viewers, think. Seeing now the deliberate actions by our elected officials and judicial officers to flagrantly disregard the city charter, the judicial canons of ethics, the state election code, and the state constitution, Is it time for the citizens to rise up and challenge the authority of their government? Please call our Full Disclosure Town Hall number and tell us what you think at 1-800-867-7777. That's 1-800-867-7777. And if you leave your name and number, we'll get back to you. Or you can log on to our website at fulldisclosure.net and leave your opinion there. And if you leave your email address, we'll be happy to respond. I'm Leslie Dutton. Please join us next time for another edition of Full Disclosure. Thank you.
To respond to this question or comment on this program, please call 800-867-7777 or visit fulldisclosure.net. Transcripts or DVD copies of this program are also available on our website. Full Disclosure, the news behind the news.